We're gonna hop right into it. We're gonna hop right into it. Happy birthday, Roxanne, right off the bat. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. We got a lot to cover. We got a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. You know what to do. Hitting those buttons to like, sharing, subscribing, and obviously that notification bell will help. But once again, thank you guys for being here. What do you say we say hi to the chat? What's happening? A lot of craziness, lots of nonsense to talk about and to get through. Like we've been saying here, if Donald Trump's health and life expectancy was like, if you could compare it to a home run, I'd say he's like three-quarters of the way down the third base line at this point. Yesterday, we talked about a good deal about the fact that Donald Trump had to hide in a food truck to get away from the threats posed to him by the Iranians, meanwhile leaving the press corps and the rest of the people in his staff on the plane that would have gotten the would have gotten the direct impact, would have gotten the direct strike by whatever Iranian threat was out there. But before we get too deep into it, let's say hi to everybody. Once again, Roxanne, congratulations, happy birthday. Hope you have a great day, and thank you for starting it off in the right direction there, Tina, with the jewels. Very much appreciated. But how's everybody doing? What's up, Twiggy over there on Twitch? What's going on, everybody? I appreciate you. What's up, Namaste? What's up, Yakov? Good to see you. What's up, Abby? No Money G? Appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you to everybody watching over there on this space as well. Conversation's going to have to be had at some point between you and I here at Blunt Politics and the community, whether or not we're going to continue the early Wednesday, being simulcast to this space, but we won't get into it at this point. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. Much appreciated. Hit that like button on the way in. It is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. My name's Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. And if you're just joining us, if you're just stumbling across this live stream, stick around for a little bit, get to know the chat, get to know the community that we've built here. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, think about, subscribing to the channel. Like the stream at the very least, that would be fantastic. Multitude of ways in which you can get involved in, contributing to the community as well. There's a Venmo up in the corner here. That is the quickest and easiest way to get your contributions to the channel. You can go over to bostonbrian.com, check out the fabulous merch shop that we have, punching well above our weight class as far as designs on merch is concerned. Again, for a small channel, for a very small channel like us, I think we're doing, some pretty good things here. So if you could hit that like button, if you could head over there to bostonbrian.com, if you could sign up for a YouTube membership just underneath me, or over at patreon.com/bostonbrian. All of those great ways to help an independent channel, an independent creator like myself, just trying to make a living, trying to bring you guys the facts, the news, the opinions, like a family does, like friends do, and not like the pinky up, accounts that a lot of you guys are used to. But let's get into the nonsense. Let's get into the craziness. We're going to be talking about in Donald Trump's declining health, cannot stay awake during an Oval Office meeting. But if you put him in front of a bunch of kids, if you take him to some sporting event where you got, people in sports, athletic wear, then boy, oh boy, Donald Trump has no problem staying awake. Doesn't matter what time it is. Could be late, could be early morning. Doesn't matter. He'll be fucking wide awake for that. But if we're discussing war, if we're talking about, lies and misinformation about vaccines, can't keep him awake to save your fucking life. But definitely doesn't have a problem. Let me throw this on the screen. That way you guys know what I'm talking about. But Donald Trump here walking out with Pat McAfee. Some other billionaires and CEOs were in attendance as well for these pedophile games. I believe it was in Ohio here. But we'll take a look at Donald Trump sleeping in the Oval Office, but wide awake at this event, which you would expect. Donald Trump once again taking to Truth Social here to make himself look a fool, to make himself look like an absolute asshole. Basically now claiming direct control over the Strait of Hormuz, like he's been doing for quite some time, but now saying that we're going to keep it. Now saying that, because the ownership that the United States now sees, even though that's ridiculous, the strait's not open, the United States does not control the Strait of Hormuz, but now he's taking a Truth Social to say that, we're just going to keep it. So, his delusions and the fact that he's not living in reality continues to come to fruition here, continues to be more and more evidence. We have a couple clips here from a little interview that he gave, a little press gaggle that he gave, where he was once again questioned about the plane swap, about having to hide in the catering truck, and the answers that he gave were, again, it just continues to be even more and more insane. The fact that, everybody else was left in harm's way. And then I believe he also goes on to once again, claim control over the Strait of Hormuz. We also have some more updates coming from the Strait of Hormuz itself. talking about more kills, more people being killed, more attacks. That again, Donald Trump will not tell you about, as he says, we control this area, the ever expanding actions of the Houthis, like we've continued to see. So, a lot going on as far as that's concerned. Mike Lindell back in the news. There's a name you guys haven't heard in a while, huh? I'm sure you're not mad that you haven't heard it in a while, but Jesus Christ. We got a couple clips of Mike Lindell once again crying, election foul mouth, you know what I mean? Crying that, the election was rigged and stolen and talking about inconsistencies in his own Republican primary. It's just, these people just never cease to amaze me. And then we get a couple updates from Ukraine as usual. We got, I think the Sun here gives us a pretty good update on Dobropelia. Now, Dobropelia, sit. No, when I click on you, it doesn't mean a play. It means sit. Stay right there. All right, you stay in the background until you need it. But yeah, we get some pretty good updates here from the Sun. Their battle plans exposed segment that they have around the Dobropelia area, which we've been looking at. We've been talking about the Russians' attempt, or at least them trying to execute what looks to be a flanking maneuver around the fortress belt cities. So you can kind of see when you're looking at the map from a distance the northern attack and the southern attack as it pertains to the fortress belt cities. And looks like Ukraine continuing to have success, pushing back those attacks and making sure that they don't see success. And there was some pretty good updates here from the battle plans exposed segment from the Sun, giving us some updates in that area as well. And then I believe we have Preston Stewart, yes, giving us an update on how Russia is running out of volunteers. Now, they're not running out of people. That's different. They are running out of volunteers and people that they are, happily willing to send over there to expend over in Ukraine. And now they're starting to get down to the nitty gritty. They're starting to get down to, the high society people that are well known, people that have, the correct religion, the correct, geographical backgrounds, as it were, to, consider themselves, Russians and Muscovites and people that live in St. Petersburg. So they're having to kind of, figure out different ways now to get people involved in this war where, the amount of people raising their hand and being willing to go over there and risk their lives and ultimately sacrifice their lives, that list is dwindling and dwindling. But they do, like I said, have a huge stockpile of people to pull from. It's just not ones that they want to pull from. So we'll see if we can get into that as well. But let's start off here with Donald Trump going to the pedophile games in, like I said, I believe it was Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. This is the moment where Pat McAfee, former NFL kicker, I believe he's got a podcast or a radio show or a show on ESPN at this point, at this time. But yeah, this is the moment where Pat McAfee went to greet Donald Trump at the airport, basically escorting him to the pedophile games. Let's see here if we can take a look at this real quick clip. So you can tell some sort of exchange there between the two where they're like, oh, they're cheering for you. No, they must be cheering for you, which is, obviously disgusting. And that led to this event that they were going to. This posted by MAGA acolyte here on Twitter, Eric Doherty, saying President Trump just walked out to a roaring crowd at the 2026 pedophile games in Ohio, followed by young athletes behind him. This is epic. These young patriots love their president. They will never forget that there were that 47 was there to watch him. And I think I've been stirring up a little, stirring it up a little on Twitter with a couple of the replies that I've had to some of this. So let's see here. I go to one of them. This one's kind of getting the most attention here. And I just put, you brought a pedophile and the guy hiding the Epstein files along with his billionaire buddies to watch kids, Pat. History will not be kind. That somehow already has about 29,000 views, depending on what Twitter actually calls a view over there. But definitely stirring some reaction with the MAGA base and people that follow Pat McAfee in general. And let's see, there was another one that I put on there about the fact that these kids will never forget. And I think Sean Hannity had the post. Let's see. Yeah, here it is right here. So Sean Hannity posted, President Trump walks out to a roaring crowd. So you can tell how these MAGA propagandists work. Like they all write the exact same shit. It's all the same, almost verbatim, word for word, post by post by post, what these people are saying. Like we've said for 10 or so years now that it looks like they get a memo. Like the fucking White House quite literally puts out a memo to all of their propaganda saying these are the lines that you have to say. This is what I want you to put out on Truth Social. This is what I want you to put out on Twitter. Put this out on Instagram, and it has to read just like this. So you can see Sean Hannity, President Trump walks out to a roaring crowd. You just heard Eric Darty start his sentence, his post the exact same way. You know what I mean? And then to Sean Hannity's post, because he says, these kids will never forget that he showed up. And I said, yes, Sean, they'll never forget when the pedophile president took time from losing a war with Iran, hiding the Epstein files, ruining the economy, robbing and pillaging our country, stealing crypto, destroying our monuments, and sleeping in the Oval Office in his shit-filled diapers. And you can see there's a bunch of posts coming from this as well. Recognizing the fact that Donald Trump had no problems staying awake during this event when there's little kids involved, right? Here's Donald Trump. You can see here, no problem, not struggling here, wide awake when he's surrounded by young kids in their athletic wear. As you can see, but just disgusting actions here and it says that the heads of Disney, ABC, and ESPN apparently were also there. If I'm reading this correctly, had a blast celebrating high schoolers from across the country with the heads of Disney, ABC, ESPN, and the United States of America. I'm proud all parties getting behind this important initiative to keep future generations excited about remaining active. But again, not recognizing that Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, you just walked out with Jeffrey Epstein's best friend and a bunch of kids. You invited a pedophile, the pedophile president, who him and his Epstein class cohorts are protecting themselves all around this world by not releasing, the remainder of the files that, everybody suspects would kind of, bring the most dirt on people and make it so that people could finally face accountability and justice. But yeah, inviting them, being so fucking brain dead, unaware, and, ignorant to what's going on in reality, to invite them to this like child's event, this high schoolers event is it shows us that the cult still remains strong, and that people remain this ignorant and stupid to surround themselves with people like this at an event like this as well. But yeah, just it goes to show you what else is going on. Like I said, as the economy is being ruined, as we continue to be kicked in the face every single day by Iran, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, gas remains over $4 a gallon. The thought of owning your own house by yourself at a young age is, just a pipe dream at this point. Groceries are exponentially more expensive than they were. Trying to buy a car is exponentially more expensive. Anything that you're doing right now is exponentially more expensive. But this guy feels like he has the time to go surround himself with little kids, and shame on the people surrounding him and shame on the people that know better for even inviting him to something like this. It's just, obviously more people need to be filled in and kind of made aware of what this guy's capable of, what he's done in the past. And, there's just people out there, obviously, that are just not going to care, even if they do know. But there's things like this, too, that we're going to discuss. I talked about this in the cold opening, as it were. But this is another one of Donald Trump's insane posts that he's putting out there on Truth Social, not only claiming, again, ownership and control over the strait, when if you look at the realities on the ground, you can see that not many ships at all are going through the strait. Iran and Oman continue their negotiations and how they're going to divvy it up. Countries surrounding these negotiations now are putting more pressure on the United States to accept the terms of Iran and Oman to open up the strait, because they don't want to see the war continue, this feudal war that continues to see billions and billions and billions of dollars of munitions and interceptors being wasted, where those could be, very helpful in other areas, in other wars. But yeah, this is what he put. He put the USA has total control over the Strait of Hormuz, which is just embarrassing to write at this point. Almost as embarrassing as having the commander-in-chief quite literally fall asleep at an Oval Office meeting. He says, I think we will keep it, all in caps. Our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel, which it's being called by absolutely nobody. Okay, the only person possibly ever to call it a wall of steel is Donald Trump in this post. And I don't even know if we'll give him credit for that. It's probably somebody else around him. One of his, Natalie Hart probably came up with that. That's who it is. And there's nothing, he keeps getting the fucking name wrong, guys. I don't understand. All these posts he got about this same country, and he just can't get the name right. So he says, our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel, and there is nothing that
Islamic Republic of Japan.
Yeah, the Islamic Republic of Japan can do about it. They have no navy. They have no air force. Their remaining soldiers are unpaid. The IRGC is decimated and fleeing, and their leadership is uncertain at best. They have no money. Their country is shot. And it's crazy how he continues to try to get these fucking talking points across. Like, he's continuing to say that they have no military capabilities in general, which is asinine, as we just not long ago had to report on the most recent deaths of the U.S. servicemen and women because of this war. He goes on to say here that their leadership is uncertain. Well, it seems to me like we've heard from a lot of different people within a lot of different sectors of the Iranian government, whether that's leaders of the IRGC, whether that's the defense council, or whether that's the spokesperson, or like there's a lot of different people that we know who they are, we know where they come from, and who they speak for within the Iranian government. So it seems to be that they have everything set up still. Like, if they still have people with titles, and we understand those titles, and we continue to go back to the same people for what they're saying about what their country is doing, then I'm pretty sure they have everything set up. You know what I mean? You may not like who they have there. You may not agree with, what's going on, but they seem to have it set up. It says, all they have is fake news and 300% inflation and getting worse. Iran is all talk and no action. The bully of the Middle East no longer. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. So just insanity all the way around by Donald Trump, claiming control over the Strait of Hormuz, which we absolutely do not have, saying that we're going to keep it. I mean, you can't keep something that you don't have to begin with, right? Why would we keep something that was an open international waterway before this war started? Again, the whole thing is just absolutely insane. Again, saying that they have no Navy, no Air Force, the remaining soldiers are unpaid, the RGC is decimated and fleeing, and their leadership is uncertain. It just makes him look like a twat. Right? It's more embarrassing for the United States. It's more embarrassing for the U.S. military to say that we're continuously at the same point. We cannot win a war. We're continuously getting defeated by a country that apparently has no Navy, no Air Force, and their leadership, nobody knows who's the leadership. You know what I mean? That's embarrassing. The fact that you, in conjunction with Israel, cannot defeat this decimated force that has no military power, no leadership, is fucking embarrassing. You know what I mean? And there was a couple of clips here that kind of reaffirm this whole thing of the alternate universe that Donald Trump's living on at this moment in time. And this is another one of Aaron Rupar's posts from this press gaggle by Donald Trump. And Aaron says, almost every single word Trump said to reporters tonight in this 53-second clip was a lie. And again, he goes on to claim ownership over the Strait of Hormuz, say our country is doing fantastically, saying that prices are coming down. Have you guys seen anything to confirm that? Is anything getting less expensive in your daily life, or is everything consistently getting more expensive in your daily life? But check out this clip, and my apologies if the sound sucks on this too, but Twitter will be Twitter.
The country's doing well. The stock market's fantastic record. We have 79 records so far in a short period of time. More people are working right now in the United States than ever before, and prices are dropping fast. Iran is going fine, going just absolutely fine. We totally control the Strait of Hormuz. We have control over it. Nobody else, only us. Our Navy is unbelievable.
Nobody else. We have control over it. Nobody else is absolutely fucking ludicrous to say at this point in time, right? The entire week we've been talking about what the media is calling new demands by Iran, which is anything but new. The same things that they've been demanding this whole friggin' time. It's the same thing. But this whole entire week, people have been talking about the demands set forth by Iran, talking about continued control over the Strait of Hormuz, their partnership with Oman. They're going to charge 7%. They'll charge 3% for their designated route. We want the $300 or $400 billion in frozen assets back. We want all the sanctions lifted. We want to be able to sell our oil. Like everything that we've talked about here has nothing to do with the United States controlling anything. It's us capitulating and figuring out which one of these asks and demands that we're ultimately going to agree to. Because obviously some of them are non-starters right off the bat. Iran knows that. They're kind of playing the long game. They really don't care at this point in time, knowing what they're willing to subject their citizens to, whether that's inflation, whether that's, devastation of infrastructure, difficulties getting clean drinking water. Like, they're willing to subject their people to all of that for another 2 years just to get one up on Donald Trump, to get one up on the United States and to remain in control over the Strait of Hormuz. They've already said that. So we don't have that. We don't have that much time. Donald Trump isn't afforded that much time. Republicans aren't afforded that much time. Like, with midterms right around the corner now, as it were, like, they have to figure out a situation, and Iran knows that. And they know that if they just wait them out, and they can, figure out how to withstand the economic, damages that they've seen from this or would see from this, then they can just wait out the United States to a longer extent than Donald Trump would be afforded the time to do here on our side. It's crazy.
Things are going great for our country. Go ahead.
Mr. President, can you tell us about your ride on the airport catering truck in Turkey? Why did you need to do that?
Well, it's only up to Secret Service. I just follow what they'd like to do. So I go by Secret Service and the military. They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane.
Yeah. They wanted me to sneak in with the cheeseburgers and the tacos and the fucking trash in the catering truck. I mean, I just, he's so afraid for his existence right now, whether that be, just mortality because of his specific health ailments that he's going through, or the new Iranian threats or continued Iranian threats on his life. We showed the other day on the show the fact that he's now golfing with like anti-missile defenses set up around him, barbed wire set up around him. And this isn't for localized domestic threats. Okay. These aren't for like the crazed lunatic that's going to try to, run onto his golf course with a private, with his own private weapon and do something. Like, these are for active missile threats, active drone threats. Like, he's really right now showing just how in fear of his life he is and how seriously they're taking the foreign threats and the red flags that it's raising with the lack of concern, the lack of thorough investigations done with all of these alleged domestic assassination attempts against his life, right? The fact that he was allowed to just sit there and peek through the curtain at the White House correspondence shooting. Nobody's thought that that was weird, right? The fact that he was allowed to get up and ask for his shoes, after he was allegedly shot in the air in Butler, Pennsylvania there. And then he was allowed to raise his fist. And then the cameramen were allowed to get shuffled in position. And then the flag was allowed to be, all of this while Donald Trump was still in the clear line of sight that was clearly calculated by the shooter at that point in time. And he wasn't being removed. It's just the way that they're treating these two different, threat levels, or these two different threats, both domestically and abroad, is raising a lot of, red flags. It's raising a lot of questions as to the domestic assassination attempts and the way that they've handled them subsequently.
Equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say.
Equal safety. And again, he goes on in this press conference to talk about, to talk about the fact that he thinks the secondary plane that he got on was in more danger, even though nobody knew he was on the plane, and the Iranians would have thought that he was on the original Air Force One along with the press corps. So he tries to make it seem like, oh no, they weren't in danger. I was in the real danger. Meanwhile, they were actively used as decoys, so Donald Trump could evade whatever credible Iranian threats were obviously, in place at that point in time. But here's a little bit from that press gaggle there. I think it might be a little bit easier to hear from this one. I don't know, see if there's anything we missed.
The Patriot games were tremendous.
Pedophile games were tremendous. I was surrounded by a lot of kids in athletic wear the whole night. I managed to stay awake. I didn't fall asleep once. It's remarkable how that happens. When you give me something that I actually am very passionate about and something that really tickles my fancy, how I stay awake. I managed to stay awake. Not so much when we're talking about, controlling the country and losing wars and, anti-vax misinformation. None of that stuff can keep me awake. But, these pedophile games here in Ohio really did the trick.
Great young athletes, the future of our country, and we had a great time in Ohio, a fantastic time in Ohio.
I think it's the end here where he's actually questioned, so I won't subject you to too much of this, but I just want to see where they're questioning him at the end here about both the Strait of Hormuz and the fact that, he kind of left them high and dry on the original Air Force One while he slunked away on a fucking in a dumpster. Basically, the president of the United States slunked away with the trash, the old food, the new food, the scraps, right, to another plane because he was in fear for his life.
Total control. We own it. And at some point, maybe they'll do something and then they get blown.
That's where he's saying that he has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. Asinine.
Away. But right now, we're in a very good position. We have a country that has been the bully of the Middle East for 50 years. Really 51 if you think about it. Right? We've been saying 47 for 4 years. And they're no longer the bully of the Middle East. Thank you very much, everybody.
Look, and that's Donald Trump at the end of his little press gaggle there, being asked about the Strait of Hormuz. And I think there was one point there, we don't have to try to find it, where he was saying something about the his little plane swap.
Presidents don't get threatened.
Yeah.
And
He says consequential presidents don't get threats. Every president has had some sort of threats and levels of threats to his life. You could be assured.
That would be the plane. I think that they would be.
Yeah, here he is. This is where he's talking about the fact that the plane that he was on, the plane that nobody knew he was on, was somehow in more danger than the plane that everybody thought the president was on, and they had originally the threats posed to it. Check this out.
And we did.
At least out of
White House officials on it. How much
there you go.
flew out of Turkey with press and with White House officials on it? How much of Jeff
went over to England? Yeah, where it was shown to the soldiers.
Still at risk, even though you weren't.
Went over to England because the soldiers wanted to see it.
Right, the one that flew.
And they showed it to the soldiers, and we did a switch over there, and it was really as per the military. And I just have to do what they say. They go for safety, and I have to do what they say.
Why was President on a midterm for you to fly on Air Force One, but not too dangerous for the press?
So she says, why was it too dangerous for you to fly on Air Force One, but not the press? Who, again, we're not informed of this little switcheroo. The Secret Service actually had to go on to Air Force One and shut the blinds and make sure nobody looked to the right or to the left. Of course, if you've seen the video of how all this went down, they had the catering truck on the front right of the aircraft as the press got onto the plane on the rear left side of the aircraft. So basically, the switcheroo was going on as the press was kind of, showing their identifications, getting their stuff together and getting on the back of the plane. Donald Trump was scurrying away into the trash-filled, catering truck that definitely probably removes the old scraps and old trash as they're bringing in, the new gear, if anything was even done as far as that truck was concerned. It's probably just mainly used for this at this point. But yeah, that was the old switcheroo that was done. And then Donald Trump somehow got back on Air Force One, made it seem like he was there the whole time, basically told the press that if he was going down, they were going down with him, which is the opposite of what was going down in reality. Because if that plane that held the press corps went down, Donald Trump would have been all set. He was on another plane. So they were going to pay the ultimate price if anything happened. Donald Trump was going to be, A-okay and safe on that alternative aircraft.
One was at greater risk. I think it was
say that. Mr. President,
that would be the plane.
She's like, how can you even possibly say that? Which is, again, a great response as far as that's concerned, considering the ridiculousness of what he's saying there. How could the plane that nobody knew you were on be under more risk and at more risk than the plane that everybody thought you were on and that had the threat against it? He's not living on this planet anymore, ladies and gentlemen, not on this planet. And again, we continue to see things like this happening as he continues to claim control over the Strait of Hormuz and say everything's going, swimmingly with the war in Iran, nothing to worry about as we continue to see $4 a gallon gas for everybody, and the inexplainable, fluctuations in the oil market that we've seen. But this continues to happen here. Iran-backed Houthis kill 6 in attack on vessel and other developments in the Middle East. It says here that Yemeni authorities said 6 people were killed by the Iran-backed Houthi rebels attacking a vessel in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which again continues to be more and more and more in the news the longer that this goes on. While U.S. forces fired on a ship they said was trying to break a blockade of Iran's ports. Here's a look at the latest developments in the Iran war in the wider Middle East. Full coverage can be found here. It says 4 crew members and 2 allied fighters killed. Yemen says 6 people were killed Tuesday by Houthis firing missiles on a vessel in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Yemen's Coast Guard said the dead included 4 crew members, 2 members of the government Allied National Resistance Forces. Houthis fired 3 ballistic missiles at the Yemeni commercial vessel, according to the Transportation Ministry of Yemen's internationally recognized government. This was just days after the Houthis had launched upon the Yemeni government and killed, I think, about 56 or 58 different representatives of that government. They are the first known deaths from the Houthis' attacks on shipping off Yemen in the latest bout of fighting in the Arab country. With the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down by Iran, there has been a renewed focus on the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which we've warned about consistently here at Blunt Politics, which is at the Yemen southern tip, which is an alternative route for Saudi Arabia's ship to ship its oil which has again been under increasing attack. The deadly vessel strike came amid Houthi attacks on the government-held port city of Mocha and the Red Sea and other areas of the country. Dozens of government troops and civilians have been killed in attacks since last week, according to the Yemeni military. The strikes are part of an escalation by Houthis against government forces in Yemen and oil facilities in neighboring Saudi Arabia, which supports the Yemeni government and the kingdom shipping in the Red Sea. The Houthis' attacks could reignite Yemen's civil war following a 2022 truce and open a new front in the Middle East war. Mohammed Abdul Salam, the Houthis' chief negotiator and spokesperson, accused Saudi Arabia in a social media post of exploiting the ceasefire to tighten an air and sea blockade it has imposed in 2015. He said the Houthis are open for negotiations, but any settlement must include lifting the blockade. So just another area of destabilization and what looks to be escalation created by the circumstances that Donald Trump initiated with his attack in conjunction with Benjamin Netanyahu against Iran. So things like that you continue to see. There's more reporting here by the Hormuz letter as well. This is 17 hours ago. It says, Iran says U.S. is running out of missiles and interceptors. Iran's production of missiles and drones is endless and has ramped up. This coming from the General Nagdi, the senior advisor to the IRG's commander-in-chief, Vahidi tells Fars. So again, just another seemingly important person in a position well recognized by other governments inside the Iranian government. So Donald Trump said they have no leadership. Everything's in disarray. Well, we're now hearing from a senior advisor to the IRGC commander-in-chief. So you know what I mean? It's like they absolutely have these positions. We've heard from the National Security Council. We've heard from IRGC spokespeople. We've heard from a ton of different people within the Iranian government to make it seem like, or at least to give the illusion that they have some sort of process in place. So it says Nagdi adds Iran produces more ballistic missiles than we launch and develops the surplus to the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Iraqi resistance groups. He says especially Iran's drone production capacity designed to exhaust expensive U.S. interceptors is even greater than the number we have to launch. That's crazy. Nagdi concludes, even if the war lasts for several years, our ballistic missiles will still land on the enemy. Again, just showing the willingness, the readiness to continue this fight. Not a country that is willing to back down, capitulate, is on its last rope, is kind of on its last leg here and is, at any moment now going to be crawling to the negotiating table, begging for ceasefires and this and that. That's not what I'm reading from this. So again, to say that the specific intent of the Iranians and their missile and drone development is to go against the very expensive United States munitions. So to utilize vastly cheaper and more inexpensive technology to combat vastly superior and more expensive technology to, stick it to the enemy in a way where it's not just your interceptors aren't able to do the trick, or your long-range missiles aren't able to do the trick, but you're also at a disadvantage because you're expending much more per missile than the enemy is expending per drone or per missile to take these out, or to make your strikes less effective. So that's a way in which that they've calculated their entire military to fight this war. Like, they are using easy to produce, cheap shit to make sure that they can combat hard to produce, very expensive shit. You know what I mean? And that's what they've kind of perfected over the years in which they've had the time to do so. And there was more coming from this as well. That was 17. This is 5 hours ago. It says Iran completely rules out any extension of the 60-day ceasefire period set in the collapsed U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding as it nears its end, saying, quote, the U.S. is desperately seeking a return to the Memorandum of Understanding, something on which no progress has been made because Iran will not agree to it, a senior Iranian official tells Reuters. The Iranian official adds, quote, from Iran's perspective, there is no start date for the ceasefire, so there is nothing to extend. The United States violated the agreement and withdrew from it. There are no discussions with the United States regarding an extension. So as Scott Bessent and Donald Trump try to piggyback on the talks between Iran and Oman, they continue to make it more and more apparent that the United States is on the outs as far as any talks are concerned, and they're basically just left to agree to or not agree to any of these demands. Also says that Iran declares it will prolong the war with the U.S. until 2029. So how many times have we said just in the last week all the reports of the Iranians more than happy and ready and willing to extend this fight well past Donald Trump's presidency, right? So this is another one. And again, take all this with a grain of salt. They have an absolute reason and necessity to peacock as well. I don't think, the fact that they've utilized and kind of targeted their military to utilize less expensive shit to take out very expensive shit is in any way peacocking. I think that's factual and can be, justified and seen with the realities of the war that are going on now. But a lot of these other things, I'm sure, to a large extent, as the non-starters they continue to put out there, as far as U.S. ships not being able to traverse the Strait of Hormuz, like things that the United States will obviously never agree to. But this is one of the reasons in which they continue to put that out, because they say here they are more than willing to prolong this war until 2029, the end of Trump's presidency, because we have not reached our final objective, and this is clear. It says the senior advisor to the IRGC Commander-in-Chief, General Nakti, says, quote, "We will wait until we get to the next term of the presidency and cause attrition so that if anybody else wants to attack Iran, they will know that there is a cost." Right, which everybody knew prior to this, which is why presidents prior to this have all said no and told Benjamin Netanyahu to go fuck himself. You know what I mean? Go pound sand, dude. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. It's destabilizing. If it doesn't go the way that you think it's going to go and hope it to go, like the ramifications of this could be I can say it, generational, you know what I mean? But yeah, so this is what we've seen. It says, Iran said earlier this week that it will wait out the Trump administration until January 20th, 2029 to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed unless all of Iran's demands are met. So showing you consistently the position that the United States is in as far as, Donald Trump saying that we own and control the strait and we're going to continue to, maybe we'll keep it, he says. Well, this is what's actually going on in reality. And this was Iran directly accuses the Trump administration of stock market manipulation and calls for the U.S. congressional investigation into Trump, his family, and his inner circle, including Kushner and Witkoff, over related insider trading. Senior advisor to the IRGC said, he says, as soon as the stock market closes, they start hostilities. When the stock market opens, they send positive messages to raise stock prices, all while they are buying and selling the stocks themselves. They don't even work for America. They work for their own interests. If I was in the place of the American Congress, I would call for an investigative committee to compare the assets of Mr. Trump, his family, and his inner circle, including Kushner and Witkoff, before the war to their assets after the war. He also called Pete Hegseth a criminal who killed 168 innocent children. Iranian officials have previously documented a pattern of oil market manipulation tied to Axios reporting in Trump administration insiders, including evidence of a $9 billion insider trading operation linked to Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. So it's not just us that are taking notice of the market manipulation. Looks like the world has also taken notice. It says Trump has been officially sued in federal court over Trump Media selling advanced millisecond access to his market-moving Truth Social post to subscribers, paying up to $100,000 per month. That coming from API per CNBC. It says the lawsuit filed in New York federal court by the Intercept Media and the Freedom of the Press Association calls the scheme extraordinary, corrupt, and unconstitutional. That is that $100,000 a month pay-to-play scheme that we talked about on one of the recent shows, where several Wall Street firms had already signed up to get their insider access, to get their insider information, so they could utilize that to make billions and billions and billions of dollars off the back end. So good to see that at least somebody is attempting to take this to court to make it as evident to everybody else how criminally corrupt this administration is, especially in this one case. But all right, let's go on to this, because here's somebody that we haven't talked about in a long, long time, and it's been good. I got to say, it's been a good run, ladies and gentlemen. It's been nice to not have to talk about this guy, to hear his voice, to hear his bullshit. But unfortunately, he's making a return. He's now back in the, in the social media feeds of people, because he's once again talking about election rigging, claiming that the election was stolen, election irregularities. And yes, of course, I am speaking about the one and only Mike Lindell, who is now claiming that there was some foul play in his Minnesota Republican primary that he had to go through. He's now saying that there was some funny business going on. So I just figured, for a little nostalgia Here's Mike Lindell, and this is posted. Lucas Sanders on Twitter said, here's Mike Lindell ranting and raving that he won't concede in the Minnesota Republican primary for governor. So, some things just never change, and I don't know what you expected from Mike Lindell, a guy that has been, again, trying to degrade the trust in our election process for years and years now, has been made to look an absolute fool time and time again. Remember what was it? It was either like $1 million or $5 million that he was that he put forth, and people that anybody that was good on the computer and could prove that there was no, I forget what it was now, there was no funny business in the election in 2020, or it was like he had information on machines, and he kind of put a bet out there to people, and he bet them $5 million that they couldn't prove him wrong. And literally one of the first people to do it was like, well, I got it. Here's the proof here. There it is. Can I get my money? You want to sign that check now? And obviously Mike Lindell never did, I don't think, come over with that money. But yeah, here's a quick clip that's making the rounds of Mike Lindell, about 1 minute and 32 seconds long, talking about the funny business in his own Republican primary. So just doesn't believe anything anymore.
Here's the next report, everybody.
Holy shit. It's been so long. Here's the next report, everybody. Gather around, people. The next count is in. We're going to sit here and count them one by one. You get that side in county, and I'll get this side in county. But let's gather around, people. Oh, fuck. The first sound of his voice just makes you want to throw up.
We just gained 5,000 votes, and we gained 5,000 votes, everybody. And the last 13,000 votes that were counted, we got 5,000. We gained 5,000 votes. So
did we gain them or did we lose them? I don't know. Somebody explain this to me. We counted 13,000, but we got 5. Did we lose the 5? Do you double the 5? Do you have to divide that 5? He's just an absolute moron. The dumbest guy possibly in the history of fucking running for politics.
Think about this. That means I got 10,000, and the rest of them got 3,000. If this is a sign, we will have the lead within an hour. I mean, this is big news. This is a big jump, and they must have started counting the day of votes. So
You keep going up.
okay.
And he still hasn't figured out this live TV thing. Like, I don't know how long he's been doing this Lindell TV, but fucking hell. If there's anybody that's like continuously watches this guy, like, I don't know how you haven't ripped your eyeballs out of your face by now, I'm not sure. Like, somebody's going to have to explain to me how anybody watches this shit. Like, he just still does not know how to have a live broadcast. Okay. Oh, shit. All right, we did that. I got a microphone. There's some time to kill here. What do we do now? He just has no clue what the fuck to do.
All right, everybody. Does anybody have any other questions?
Does anybody have anything I can talk about? I got my own television network here. I got my own microphone here with my own name on it here, but I got nothing to talk about there. Sorry.
If the AP calls the race for Lisa Davis in the next half hour, will you concede?
If who does?
If the AP calls the race.
What is the AP? The voters. What the AP? Why would I listen to the AP? There's 265,000 votes left to count.
So the guy's just, again, an absolute madman. And there's a bunch of clips of him going in and actually casting his vote as well. This one, I think.
Steinberg here with Lindell TV. Mike Lindell.
Yeah. Here he is. I don't know how they're allowed to do this. How can Mike Lindell with Lindell TV get his cameras to follow him with his microphone that has his television name on it, with a clear fucking bias in this, clearly backing, a certain candidate, his own candidacy. Like, I don't understand how he's allowed to bring the cameras in there, the microphone in there, do an interview as he's going to, vote. He makes a comment about no ID after he had just talked about how he had already been verified, as a citizen of Minnesota. So it's like, no, that they already did that they verified that was like, it never ceases to amaze me, the stupidity. But yeah, that was his clip making the rounds. But before we jump into some of Russia's issues to kind of get you hot. Fuck, the hour always flies by. I always feel like I forget that we only have an hour on Wednesdays here. But I do want to go through two stories at least. Yeah, there was another Wildberries that I believe was attacked, if I'm not mistaken. And then I want to go over the successes that Ukraine has been seeing in the Dobrapilya area, because I think that's a very, very important area. You know, in by my estimations, by my calculations, and in my opinion, one of the more important areas of the entire war right now is whether or not Russia, breaks through, sees success in the Dobrapilya area and is able to kind of start their flanking maneuver in and around and behind the Fortress Belt cities, which would obviously not be good. But let me throw this on the screen because this is from The Sun. Battle plans exposed. And they do a pretty good job here of explaining two stories. Another Wildberries facility that was hit, and I know we love to keep track on our Wildberries bingo board, so I couldn't breeze past this. I don't want to say that we weren't going to cover this. And then the very next segment is and it gives some front lines and mapping information and shows you exactly where we're talking about, and talks about some of the Ukrainian successes that they're seeing in this area to make sure that Russia doesn't see and the ability to break through and get around and behind the Fortress Belt city. So what do you say we start here, and I'll see if I can get you out of here on Preston Stewart video talking about the lack of personnel that are willing to volunteer for Russia and the problems that are now being faced by Russia as far as that's concerned. So let's jump into this one. And this is again titled Inside the 4-Hour Battle That Pushed Russia Back in Donetsk. And then it says battle plans exposed. So let's get into it. Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day, spending it here with me or the chat that we've built, the community that we've built. If you could hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, or just in any way, any one of the ways that you can contribute to the channel, send in $1 or $2. That's all we ask for. Nothing more than that. If you think we're deserving of more than that, not going to stand in your way, though. Definitely won't stand in your way, but $1 or $2 from a lot of people in the chat will go a long way at helping us get through the old algorithm problems. All right, let's get into this. This is talking about, I think, the most recent Wildberries attack. So get your Wildberry bingo boards ready, get your markers ready. Let me know if you got bingo.
In a much closer proximity. Next, we'll start to see air-to-air battles. Sensational footage reveals the catastrophic aftermath of a Ukrainian long-range drone strike on the massive Wildberries logistic hub in Alksyn, located in Russia's Tula region. Plumes of thick black smoke and towering infernos can be seen rapidly engulfing the nearby 200,000 square meter facility, one of the largest distribution centers in central Russia. The overnight strike triggered massive secondary fires.
And what's crazy about these strikes are the fact that we haven't seen the secondary impacts, right? Like the reports of the secondary impacts from these strikes. Like we've seen the impacts from the strikes themselves. We've seen the pictures and the videos coming from the fires and the smoke plumes. But the secondary impacts, people losing their job, people losing their livelihood, people that did like the drop shipping type of shit with Wildberries, not having the ability to make money, the companies that relied upon Wildberries to get their goods, to get whatever they needed, not having the goods to put on the shelves. So we've seen a little bit of some of the food markets, some of the supermarkets and the food stores in and around the area having trouble kind of, stocking their shelves. But we'll start to see more and more of the secondary impacts of these strikes as time goes on. So this is just level one of basically the original strikes, and then downstream from this, Russia will start to see the economic impacts, the economic ramifications, and just more more kind of separated geographically in how those villages and regions will pay the price. I'm sure a lot of these regions, a lot of the people worked at these Wildberry facilities. Sure, in a lot of these, kind of rural regions, there aren't too many employment opportunities. So when you start seeing the impacts of that, along with the fuel crisis, along with the, the economic impacts of the economy in general, like that's when you really start to see the downstream effects. So there was another Wildberries, and then just for the sake of time, I'm going to push into this next segment where they talk about the Ukrainian counterattacks in the Dobrapilya area, and he does a good job of showing you on the map exactly where we're talking about as well.
Stopped dead in its tracks. We're breaking down a massive high-intensity...
And you can already see, just looking at this map, right? You don't have to be a military strategist. You don't have to have been in the military in any way, shape, or form to see the problem, to see the potential problem, let's call it. I mean, if you look up here in Lyman, you can see a clear bulge This up here in the north of Lyman, we've talked about the Ukrainians' attempts to try to split this salient in two to cut off the obviously eastern and western portion of the Russian forces. And then in the southern area here, if you look down by Konstantinivka, you can see the clear bulge that has been shown here, kind of even extending past the fortress belt cities, Lyman, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka. So you can see the necessity for the Ukrainians to make sure that the Russians don't see any breakthrough in this area, which will absolutely have a huge impact on the way that these cities are able to be defended and what the soldiers in this area are going to have to do as far as how long they can stay in this area. So to see these counteroffensives, to see these counterattacks by the Ukrainians and the success that they're seeing in this specific area down here in the south, down south of Konstantinivka, is something that we need to continue to see. It's good to hear, but we need to continue to see them make it as difficult as humanly possible, and if possible, push the Russians back from any of the territory that they've managed to gain in this southern area. So let's go on here where he explains how they're doing this.
Russian offensive that ended in a catastrophic failure for the Kremlin. This has happened around a number of different settlements. Novokomnechki, Vozhzhenka, and Chartovy in this sort of area here. So we've effectively got a triangle in this area.
And you can see the Russian push in this area. You can see how they're pretty focused on this area with their attacks and trying to, cause some breakthrough. You can see 3 different points of attack here where they're trying to, if not congregate, attack, to get through, to push through the Ukrainian defenses. So let's see how they defended against it.
The Russian command launched a coordinated multi-axis armoured assault aiming at breaching Ukrainian positions near the village of Shakovy. But instead of a breakthrough, the occupiers ran headfirst into a steel wall orchestrated by the 1st Corps Azov of the National Guard of Ukraine. Now let's look at the map to understand the scale of what Russia committed.
Well, that's crazy, because didn't Donald Trump say that that's what they were calling? Oh, here, I'll put this. Donald Trump said they were calling their blockade a wall of steel. Nobody's calling it that, but in this very broadcast that we just heard, he's calling it a steel wall as far as the Ukrainian defenses are concerned. So they are calling the Ukrainian defenses a steel wall, not so much the United States forces in their fight against Iran.
This 4-hour battle. Forces from the 41st Guards Combined Arms Army alongside...
A 4-hour battle. So we're talking about a pretty prolonged attack here, and obviously the necessity for the Ukrainians to defend against this attack. This wasn't like a 25-minute, half-hour, even an hour incursion that was defended against. They ended up kind of retreating. This is a 4-hour, consistent, prolonged battle here where the Russians tried to push through and the Ukrainians had to consistently counterattack and defend against that.
Heavy armour of the 90th Guards Tank Division pushed directly out of the Novo-Eknomichny area, which is this sort of area. So it's trying to come up against the fortress belt of the cities of Konstantinivka, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk.
And this is exactly what we've been warning against right here. This is exactly what we don't want to see happen. And this is just, again, explaining what the Russians are attempting to do. This is not by any means what they've been able to do. This is what they're attempting. And this is what the Ukrainians have to defend against, and defend against to the best of their ability, because this is, again, having huge impacts on what happens in Lyman, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka, and any of these smaller settlements dotted in between the fortress belt cities that we think about here. So if the Russians are managing to flank around and get behind these cities, it basically totally evaporates and eradicates the defensive lines that have been built for years, that they've had the time to build, any of the defensive structures, and obviously they're going to have to go to the next steps in either trying to escape to the north or get further to the west before the Russians inevitably make it to whatever part. And this is, again, just hypothetical, talking about what could be seen if in fact a breakthrough is allowed in this area. What we're reporting on is not been allowed to happen. The Ukrainians have seen success, especially in this 4-hour engagement, taking out heavy Russian armored vehicles and continue to do so. So again, we're just talking about the potential and what we're defending against in this area.
And Lyman from the outside. The goal was to merge the columns and smash into the defense ring around Charkovy, which is in the Konstantinivka area, using dozens of tanks, armored combat vehicles, and light transport trucks. To guarantee ground movement, the occupiers attempted total air suppression. They flooded the sky with decoy drones and Lancet kamikaze UAVs to deny Ukrainian operators drone access, whilst heavy Tornado S MRS...
And you'll remember, we talked about this exact convoy. Remember this convoy that we talked about last show? I believe Denis Davidov was giving us some film and some footage from these attacks in this huge Russian column. Well, this is the area that we were talking about. Remember how I pointed out it was in the Dobropelia section? Well, this is what they were attempting to do. Like, you can see exactly now how serious they're taking, their attacks in this area, how much they're willing to kind of put into the attacks and throw into these and waste inevitably, with the success that the Ukrainians have seen with the counterattacks. But they're going to continue to throw meat into the meat grinder and, and try to kind of poke and prod these different areas to see any weakness in the Ukrainian front, in the Ukrainian defenses, and try to exploit that to continue to try their push behind the fortress cities here, which obviously would be a huge, huge problem.
Systems rained long-range precision fires to suppress Ukrainian defensive lines. The Russian offensive collapsed when the Ukrainian command anticipated their every move. Ukrainian forces turned the approaches to the Shakhovy into an absolute death trap. Heavy minefields halted the lead armoured vehicles, forcing Russian columns into narrow choke points. Ukrainian Air Force jets hit and destroyed critical bridges along the assault routes, cutting off Russian retreat and supply lines. When Russian combat engineers rushed forward to lay pontoon bridges over the damaged crossings, Ukrainian tactical aviation struck again, obliterating the pontoon equipment. Trapped between minefields and blown river crossings, the Russian columns were locked into place. That's when the First Corps of the Azov unleashed a synchronized fire assault.
So you can see the levels of the counterattack, too. You can see how they strategically were maneuvering this armored column into or onto a road where they couldn't pass each other, where they were kind of sitting ducks lined up one after another. And then they sent in the Azov, to take them out with, drones, whatever they were using as far as that was concerned. Once they got them in that convoy, once they got them lined up like that, they kind of unleashed hell on them. So you can see the different tactics that were used and the different levels of this. Okay, let's set up the minefields in this area, in that area. That way, once they run into those, they're inevitably either going to take this option or that option. If they take this option, this is what we can do. If they take that option, this is what we can do. So they already had it planned out in their heads as far as the Ukrainians, what they needed to do, where they wanted to filter this attack into if it ever was to come. And then when the Russians inevitably enacted this attack, it kind of went exactly to plan as far as the Ukrainian side was concerned, and definitely not to plan as far as the Russian side was concerned.
Artillery, MLRS, and strike UAVs. Ukrainian forces destroyed 7 tanks, 7 combat vehicles, 8 missile launchers, 47 light vehicles, and whilst over 123 Russian soldiers were killed in action.
In 4 hours. In 4 hours. Let's go over that list one more time. Let's just think about that list one more time here.
Strike UAVs. Ukrainian forces destroyed 7 tanks.
7 tanks, and that's on top of the MLRSs that he just talked about previously. So 7 tanks.
Combat vehicles. 8
hold on. How many combat vehicles?
Strike UAVs. Ukrainian forces destroyed 7 tanks, 7 combat vehicles.
7 tanks, 7 combat vehicles.
8 missile launchers.
8 missile launchers.
47 light vehicles.
47 light vehicles.
Plus over 123 Russian soldiers were killed in action.
And 123 Russian soldiers were killed in action in 4 hours of this, in this attack that the Ukrainians managed to face and to counterattack pretty successfully in this area. So, we talk about these areas of importance, and we continue to show you what's happening in these areas. And, happy to report, at least on this occasion, that the Ukrainians were very, very successful in making sure that the Russians didn't see any breakthrough in the, south of Konstantinivka, Dobropilya sector of the front there. So let's see if there was any more from this.
No, this was an audacious attack from the Russians, showing that, as we've been describing for the last few weeks, their small infiltration tactics, they have now managed to put together what was probably, in reality, a regimental-sized, battalion/regimental-sized combined attack. Very bold for the area that they were trying to cover with such a small force. And it's just over a company group that has been completely destroyed in this. But it shows the Russians have still got the ability to try and bring together these all-arms operations.
Again, you can see the impact of this area. You can see the willingness of the Russians to continue to throw their troops into this area. You can see the importance seen in this area. So we'll continue to do the reporting necessary to keep everybody up to speed and up to date on what's taking place in this area of the front and in all areas of this war in general. But I'm going to have to toss it over to my next creator over there on this space. I do appreciate you guys for watching on either one of these platforms, either one of these accounts. Please hit that like button. And if you're here on Blunt Politics, if you're in the Blunt Politics community and you sent in a super chat, if you sent in a Venmo, stick around, because like we do at the end of every single podcast and every single live stream, we make sure to highlight, thank you guys, read your chats, all of that. So I'll throw it over to this space now. Much appreciated to you guys and the mods over there. Much appreciated. All right, have a good day. All right, let's get over here to the YouTube side of things. Well, actually, no, I lied. Let's get over to the Venmo side of things and see if there's anybody nice enough to send over a Venmo. because I know on the early show it kind of there's a lot of people on during the day. We don't typically get the most amount of viewers, let's just say, by any stretch of the imagination on the early show. So I always appreciate anybody that does stop by, anybody that contributes to the show on the early show. We also have tonight's show, 8:30 p.m. To catch up on any of the things that we missed, like this Preston Stewart video, which we didn't get time to talk about, which goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about on the front lines in Ukraine, which was the ability that Russia has, that it's running out to produce volunteers, people ready, able, and willing to raise their hand. And now they're getting into, kind of conscription territory and people that are going to be forced to fight into this. So they've gone through all the poor people. They've gone through all the people on the outskirts, the outer regions, the people that they see as others that are not, plainly or historically Russian. So now they're going to have to get into, the groups of people that they were, not wanting to send, not willing to send into there, the kids of the more affluent people in the societies of Russia. But thank you to Brian H., as always, for everything you've done for this channel. I really, really do appreciate that. He says, screwed up yesterday and sent 20 to Hal, but then realized he could use a little help himself. So here's today's couch cushion treasure for you to help with postage. Slava Ukraine. Oh, thank you so much, brother. I do appreciate you, Bri. I appreciate you guys watching all of the different platforms and supporting all of the different creators that you support. I know you guys are spread thin. I understand that. So for you guys to take $1 or 15, in this case 20, in this case out of your pocket to donate it here to Blunt Politics, I really, really do appreciate that. Same with John McDonough, sent it in 15, says help with costs. Much appreciated, John. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Showing up time after time and being so supportive of this channel, of this show over the last couple of days. Jenny Faye and Corey. Thank you to Thomas and Victoria, Roger and Karen. Thank you to Allison as well for supporting this channel and keeping us running. We have a couple people on the YouTube side of things here to thank. Tina throwing in a couple jewels and a silver star. We got Abby throwing in 100 Swedish krona. No, Brian, you don't have to exchange. I'm not sending you banknotes. I appreciate that. Thank you. I still have some, hold on, Ukrainian funds. Let's see here. See if I can find this real quick. Probably not. Oh, here it is. I think I have a couple Ukrainian left. I got a 200 here. Ukrainian hryvnia. And then I got 100 as well, which again, no, it doesn't make me anywhere near as wealthy as you'd think here in the United States. So yeah, that's just a couple Ukrainian hryvnia that I came on the way, that I saved on the way back. But thank you, Abby. I really do appreciate that. Thank you for everything that you do for this channel. And again, with the 5 gifted Boston Brian memberships, I really do appreciate that and everything that you guys do for this channel. Please make sure you check out the Blunt Politics merch shop over there on bostonbryant.com. If you could, the merch on there, the designs on there are absolutely fantastic. We're also running a $5 off all of the t-shirts for a summer-long deal. So, if you can utilize some of the discounts with the Patreon, along with the $5 off for the t-shirts, then you're looking at a pretty good discount for some really good some merch here, some really good merch that helps this channel survive, keeps us ticking, as it were. And then, you can just some of the options that you got here. You can stop pretending your racism is patriotism. One of my favorite. You got Smokey the Bear there telling you that only you can resist fascist liars. Obviously, the resist is a good one. People of quality don't fear equality, which I think is a banger. Big fan of human rights is a good one. Chinga la migra speaks for itself. And then you got the fascist fighter on the left-hand side, which is also a fan favorite. So if you could check out the bostonbryan.com merch site, there's the link on bostonbryan.com that says the Blunt Politics merch shop that you can just click on. That takes you right to it. And then there's some fantastic things on there as well. And then don't forget the support that we show to Ukraine. Anything over there that is Ukraine related, all the proceeds get donated to United 24 as well. So we continuously try to help any way that we possibly can. Our stickers and totes have gone out, have been shipped to all of the Patreon members that are deserving. That are in the appropriate levels there. So be expecting those sometime in the near future as well. And then we also have the the Zoom dates for August as well. So don't forget the Zoom dates. We had the VIP one on the 10th. We have the one on the 17th coming up for the better in the VIP levels, and then another VIP on the 24th as well. So much appreciated to you guys that support us and follow us on all of our social medias. We can throw those up there as well. We got social medias out the wazoo. So whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, Substack, the whole 9 yards. If you're on any one of those, please make sure you're searching out Boston Brian or Blunt Politics. Somewhere in those searches should bring you to my page. So very much appreciated. Thank you to all the mods for what you do, and I'll see you guys later on this evening. So typically we have a larger crowd for the Wednesday night show. So if you want to come back and join more people in the chat, we'll talk about some more craziness, get into the Russian losses and how they're struggling to find men, at least to volunteer for their fight. Stick around tonight or join us later tonight, 8:30 p.m. My name's Brian. This is Blunt Politics. Stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive, stay informed, and stay in the fight. That's the most important thing. But make sure you're keeping your head on a swivel out there. Make sure you're staying safe because we need you involved in these communities because you guys are the ones that make these communities flourish. The only reason that these communities can be a thing is because of you absolutely fabulous people and saints in the chat here. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you to the mods. Big salute. W's in the chat for the mods. And I'll see you tonight at 8:30. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. Oh, thank you, John. Much appreciated, dude. Make it to even 20. Sorry, Mr. Zoom got drunk instead. That's all good. All good. Happy hangover. Happy birthday again, Roxanne.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Do we love miners? I love miners. We're inviting Americans from all across the country to come.
By the Islamic Republic of Japan.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart. It's an incredible thing.
It's a thought. Grow a sack, fill it with some balls.
How to officially name the undisputed. When did this come out?
He said, is that a Trump statement or is that real?
The new form of vicious violation to our country. They're just getting acclimated. You know what that means, acclimated?
He says, wrecked him, damn near killed him. Taking him back to Nevada where he's wanted for banging horses.
Never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight uphill.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
The rest of my life I have the curse that I have little hands. Referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small.
Hey, you got a little chubby going there.
Cacophony, a crescendo, a finale, a coup de grace.
Eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis.
Like we always do about this time.
Army manned the air. It ran the rampart. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do. The big, fat, sloppy United States.